Greetings and salutations. This is David Duford of Duford Insurance Group. We're a train and recruit agents nationally to sell things like final expense, Medicare and annuities, face-to-face and over the phone. Today, I have my good friend in the business on the call here, Mr. Cody Askins. Say hello, Cody.
Hello, buddy. Dude, it's great to be with you, man. Thank you so much for, I love spending time with you, you know?
Yeah, we don't spend enough time. We're so busy all the time. You're jet setting and doing stuff, and I'm just
So
sitting
true.
here being an introvert in my office.
Dude, so true, man. But every chance we get, I love it. Anytime you ask or I ask, I love doing stuff together. And we're definitely two guys out there trying to help insurance agents succeed. And you've been pioneering that for a long time. So thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Cody. So that's exactly the reason I have you here because as I've noticed, you talk a ton about mentorship and the benefits that it provides. And I don't really talk a lot about this on my channel, at least directly. So I figured I'd have you on and kind of get your perspective on the value of mentorship and why agents should certainly consider it. So let's kind of start there. What do you think the reasons are that an agent or any salesperson really needs a mentor if they want to be successful in their particular business?
Yeah, I mean, my buddy Coach Burt says it best, that you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame, you know? And for me, I've had pivotal moments in my career where I was around someone, I learned something, I soaked something up, and it changed and altered the direction of my companies and business, right? And I've really seen the benefits of not having an ego and realizing I can learn from others. You know, I still learn a ton of stuff from you and what you're doing and everything else, right? I'm always looking and learning. It made me think a little bit. I was interviewing Brian Tracy yesterday for our 8% virtual conference that we're doing. And one of the things that he said, he gave his three golden triangle of success. And the last thing he talked about was dedicating yourself to continued learning. Right. And that's why I love why you put out so much valuable content for the industry. And it shows how much you care because you actually do it. And I've just learned how much mentorship and mindset and learning from others, getting in the room, getting around people can really benefit everyone long term.
Can you give us a story where this experience happened, where you had some mentor in your life where that interaction gave you, I call it an inflection point, where there was this pivotal point in your career and your growth,
Yes.
where it was like night and day, lights on, lights off, everything changed. Was there something like that involved with a mentor?
Yeah, totally. There was a few. One was with my own father. I was 16 years old and I was supposed to go to work at 4:00 and on a Saturday, and it was like 3:30. I was throwing up. For those that haven't heard this story, and I'm outside throwing up because we were hanging out with friends and stuff. And I go to my dad. I'm supposed to go to work at this little Apple Market, little grocery store in Rogersville, Missouri, you know, little place. And I go to my dad. I'm like, hey, I'm not feeling real well. I'm throwing up. I don't really want to go to work today, right? And as an insurance agent, there's a lot of truth in what I'm about to say because there's a lot of days where we experience rejection. We don't feel like waking up. We don't feel like getting out of bed. We don't feel like getting moving. We don't feel like doing whatever it takes and showing up. And my dad said something that I still remember every day when I don't feel like showing up. And he said, you do whatever you want to do, but you know what I would do. I'm like, gosh, dang it. Come on, Dad. And in that moment, I learned, because I've never seen him miss a day of work, right? Knock on, I don't know if this is wood, but he's been very fortunate health-wise where he has never missed a day of work in his 31 years in the insurance industry. April 1st will be his 31st. He'll hit 31 since April 1st, 1990. And he's shown me the value of showing up every day, whether you feel like it or not. Like I talk about steps to success and how I believe insurance agents can succeed better and easier. And that is simply by showing up, right? If you're watching and you're someone that shows up, even when you don't want to, you will be successful in this career, no matter what you know about the products and insurance, because you're going to continue to learn and show up, and you're going to get to know the knowledge and the skills that you need later on as you go by just showing up every day. That was one big one. Another one was I was at Grant Cardone's office in Miami, Florida, back in January of 2018. This has been just over 3 years ago. And he had his growth conference in Vegas in February of that same year. 30 days, and I was at his office 30 days before. My wife's a big Duke fan, so we went to see Duke play Miami in Florida. I don't know why she's a Duke fan. No freaking clue, but she is. So we haven't this year, but we typically go to a Duke game every year since we got married. Just something fun to do together. And I was at his office, and it was a pivotal moment where he wanted me to invest $15,000 in 2 tickets to his conference. And I was very outside of my comfort zone, hanging out with him to begin with for a few minutes. You know, we're not best friends and all that, like some people think. I was just hanging out. He was selling me something, and I had some fear towards doing it, and I decided to move forward and pull the trigger and do it. And the lesson is that I did that, and the things that I learned at that conference, getting in a room with other people, like there's been some times where Cody thought he was all that and he was hot stuff and everything else, right? Like we all go through those moments every now and then, and we have to check ourselves, right? And I was in a room with people that were doing so much more and thinking so much bigger, and they were doing so much more revenue, and they had such bigger teams and bigger companies and bigger, bank accounts, everything else, that it made me think on a whole nother level. And I learned specific tangible nuggets that I took away from the event that I now apply in our companies. And there's just been pivotal moments, like you talk about inflection points along the way, that changed the game for me. But if I wasn't there, if I didn't show up, if I didn't go, if I didn't get in the room, like I see you're doing virtual events, and you've done some in-person events in the past. And I believe in the power of events. We're going to do probably 30. I bet we'll do, actually, between virtual and in person, I bet we'll do 60 events this year in 2021, when a lot of people aren't even doing events. And the reason why is because I've seen how much it's benefited me and how much it can benefit others to realize that you can always learn something else and continue to stay motivated and learn at the same time.
I'll speak personally to the event side. I think one of the biggest regrets that I've had, as my audience knows, I am an introvert, and I do everything virtually. And one of the downsides I've discovered in my agency, and it's various extent a downside, is that there's not a physical camaraderie in a typical type or a traditional type of environment. And I've always eschewed it. That's no big deal. And for some, it's not a big deal, but for a lot, it's a great big deal. To not be around others who are successful and to see it and to feel it and communicate and pick up on ideas and ways that you can improve. And one of the biggest regrets that I've had is I did my very first group or agency meeting right as coronavirus was starting. So this time last year, like literally the second week or third week of February. And I remember walking away thinking, man, I should have been doing more of these. Man, I've been missing the boat. It was just so great to get with my people, to kind of, obviously play off of each other, pick up some ideas. We had some people come in and train. And there's just something, it's funny. It's like, you got all these videos out there. Doesn't that equate to the same thing? No, it doesn't. I don't know why, but there's something powerful about just showing up and seeing people and interacting. And guys, I mean, take it from me. I've done everything virtually as much as I can, but I know I've missed the boat on a lot of value just by not being there and being in person for some of these events. So I totally agree.
Well, thank you for you were able to come to our first 8% in Nashville, and it meant, I remember leather jacket and all there at the stadium, and it meant looking up to you and learning from you and you pioneering everything that we're doing. It meant the world that you were able to be there, and you showed up and probably got some value out of it as well, like we all try to. And thank you for being a part of that experience and kicking that off with us.
Yeah, and that was kind of the first realization. I was like, this is cool. Like, why have I been, avoiding this stuff? Not avoiding it, but why am I not being more interactive? Because there's only upside potential, and networking certainly, as well as just learning.
Yes,
and that never ends.
No, I wish I would have been doing the things that we're doing now much sooner, right? I guess, hindsight's 2020. You can't, the key is, for the viewers, is when you should be doing something and you wish you would have done something, you can only correct it now. You can't go back.
So let's talk about a mentor. So a lot of people have in mind, they've seen enough of your content. They've read enough around it. A mentorship provides a lot of value. But what specifically does a good mentor bring to the table for somebody who's looking for one? What is it? What factors are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, what you want to really see is, okay, have they done what I'm trying to do? Can they, or are they at a level to where I know I can pick up some nuggets from their knowledge? The questions I ask myself when I'm considering hiring someone, right? Because I've hired a personal coach for 25 grand. I went to Grant Cardone's $50,000 mastermind in February of 2020. I paid 50 grand for a power day with a speaker. Like I've had these moments where I've invested a lot more money than I've paid tens of thousands to go to several conferences every year in a row. I've learned that the questions I ask myself, right, is, and normally the first question isn't, can I afford it, right? Even though that can be, Dave Ramsey wouldn't love that answer. The first thing I look at is it going to help me? Am I going to pick up some value that can help me short-term and long-term? Right? That's a question you got to ask yourself. Second question I typically ask myself is, okay, will I see a return on investment? Is there no question in my mind, will I see a return on investment? Yes. And then the third question I ask myself is, okay, is this the right individual based on their credentials, based on what I'm trying to do, and based on what they've done? And if all those line up, then why didn't I do it sooner is the next question I typically ask myself. And then I do it because I believe a lot of people, you end up selling how you buy. I've always been a pretty decent closer because of how impatient and how I purchase. And so I expect everybody else to purchase the exact same way, right? That helps me as a salesperson, as a closer. And so, I mean, also from a mentorship standpoint, I mean, we've got options for people to watch free. We both have thousands of free YouTube videos. I do free webinars all the time. We're doing a new agent training class today from 2 to 5 for new and struggling agents for $57. Or I'm talking to 3 people right now today that are considering hiring me to work with their team and train and motivate their sales team every month for $30,000 over the next 12 months, once a month, including our sales system and all that. And so it really varies on what you're looking to accomplish, but those are some of the things that I look for and really consider and ask myself when I'm looking to find someone. Also, something I started to ask myself more now too is, how much access can I get to them? That's where you've always done a really good job of keeping that level of access to you, right? To a certain extent. You can't just let everybody in all the time or you'd never get anything done. Okay. So if that happens, you're like, well, Dave didn't email me back, 3 seconds later. Well, dude, Dave's got a lot on his plate. Dave's, doing a lot. Okay. You got to be understanding of that as a mentee. But I look for access. That's why I hired a coach. That's why typically the Cardone events or the mastermind, some of these other intimate type stuff, event type stuff, I'll typically get more access. There's a lot of people that don't want to work with people one-on-one coaching wise. I still do, even though I'm running out of time and we're scheduling stuff for April right now. But what kind of access can I get? What can they do to my business? And will I leave with some strategies and thinking bigger because of that relationship?
How would you help someone, you mentioned ROI. How would you help someone who's interested in mentorship and understand there's a bigger ticket for it? How would you help them, gauge what the potential ROI could be? I think that probably is a holdup for a lot of people. They value the idea of it and certainly like the ideas of the access, but how did you value that when we're at your inflection point? Might be a good question to ask.
Yep.
You had that point with Grant. How did you justify it? What went on through your mind that said, okay, I'm going to take this big leap where I'm out of my comfort zone?
Yeah, I've learned a couple answers to that. I've learned that when I am operating outside of my comfort zone, growth tends to happen for me, right? I've heard you talk about limiting beliefs as well, right? Where there's mental barriers that are physically holding us back from taking the next level in our life. A lot of insurance agents, I feel like I need to know everything before I do anything. That's a limiting belief. You don't. I feel like I need to worry about, I care about what all my friends and family think, right? That's a limiting belief. That's holding you back. Who cares, right? I always tell people this a lot. Most people are surprised to hear this. And my wife doesn't love that I share it, but she's not in here. So, we'll see if she watches this. My in-laws told my wife when we first got married, or maybe before we got married, why doesn't he get a real job? Because I was like a brand new agent back then, Well, holy crap! I'm so glad I didn't now.
Who's laughing now, in-laws?
Exactly, right. And so I've just seen those things over time to where, also from a return on investment standpoint, here's the answer to that. So I was working with, I'm coaching a guy I was working with yesterday. And literally in 30 minutes, I was able to help him identify what his targets were, what were most important to him. He's making about 200 grand a year right now, and he wants to start to scale outside of himself. If someone wants to scale like the company and sales team and through people, I've made so many mistakes the last 5 years doing that, and can totally help in a lot of ways. And so we actually mapped out how, numbers wise, target wise, goal wise, idea wise, how he could go from 15 grand a month to 83 grand a month and earn and get to 7 figures. What exactly that would look like, how many people it would take based on what product he's selling, based on his overrides, et cetera, right? We mapped it all out. And in 30 minutes, the guy was like, dude, this has been way worth the investment, just because I'm thinking how it's possible and actually know how it's now possible. And I'll give you a little hint. He's got 6 producing agents right now. I showed him how he could do it in the next 36 months by just going from 6 to 60. He only needs to find 54 producers in his state and the states around him, based on everything we talked about, for that to be reality, right? That's the kind of stuff I look for when I'm like, okay, how can I get a return on investment? And I personally, for me, and I know for you too, if I take someone's money in any way, I feel obligated to do my best to deliver. I don't like taking someone's money and then not giving them value, right? That's why I've never loved the lead business, to be honest, because I can't guarantee any freaking results. And that always drove me nuts, man. Like, I hated that. Deep down, I care about people's success. No matter what everybody else thinks or anybody else believes, or the 80 negative comments on YouTube every day, I can promise you, I truly do care. I really, really do.
So let's say we have some new people watching this. There's a lot that are newer to insurance or just getting started.
Yes.
They believe in the idea of having a mentor. What advice would you give a new agent and pursuing someone to mentor them to get somebody to do it, really, at the end of the day?
Yeah. The first thing you got to do is you got to spend time with the person, right? And you probably can't spend time with them in person. If you can, it's even better. If you can get in the room with them, we should have an event in Miami Mastermind. For like a few $100s, you could spend, half a day with me and talk about concepts and train. That's a great way. Or a retreat on a weekend. I'm going to Memphis the day before Justin's event. And if you're going to be there, I'd love for you to jump up and speak and say a few words, by the way. And we're going to do that in Memphis, like in a small event, but spend some time with them. That's where you can really start to learn. Like, everybody puts the best version of them on video, right? We put out videos and you're like, man, Dave's looking good, man. He's got the slick back hair. He's got the dress shirt. He knows his stuff. He's been in insurance for 100 years. Like, he gets it. Okay. He knows what he's doing. Spend time with them. That's how you could, like, you spend an entire day on a virtual event, or you do a lot of private Zooms, or you get in front of them with a room, or you meet them, or you shake their hand, or you get to do a little Q&A or whatever. Then that's where you really start to learn more about someone. And so when you're looking and you're considering working with somebody in any way, on any mentorship level, my suggestion is to, even if you got to invest a little bit of money, spend some, even if it's free, $57, $197, $1,000, whatever, spend some time with them, get in a room with them, and you'll learn a lot, and you'll pick up some stuff, and you may or may not gel with that person based on what you learn.
Let's flip the tables a little bit. I'm curious. Why would somebody want to spend time mentoring them? What is in it for the mentor? I've got some opinions, but I'm kind of curious to hear yours. Why is that a benefit potentially to the person who's delivering the mentorship?
Yeah, and that's a good question, because the biggest question I get from a lot of people is, okay, you're mentoring people. without trying to ever recruit them, or work with them. And then they're like, well, that really makes zero sense ever. Okay. Well, from my standpoint, I learned, like, I had an inflection point. Here we go. I went up to Northern Missouri when I was probably 20. I'm going to guess I was 21 at that point. We had a manager that said, hey, I've got 2 new agents. They're struggling. They're not making any money. They're failing quickly. Can you come up and help mentor them? And I'm like, okay, I got to take my day and not sell. And I go drive 5 hours to spend time with them. And I'm like, I have a problem. I have trouble saying no to people when they want my help. So I'm like, sure, why not? So I go up, spend the whole day. We go cold door knocking to sell final expense life insurance. Literally cold door knocking, like Section 8 housing, just like, door knocking for hours and hours. And we write 5 policies that day. And I would door knock with one person and get in a home. And then I go door knock with the other person. We would kind of like trade back and forth because it'd be kind of weird, 3 people at a door. So, so we traded off and on. And it was an unbelievable day. We're high-fiving, we're having fun. Like, it was one of the funnest days of my career. And I leave all the business with them. I take 0 commission. Their names were Greg and Hunter. I take 0 commission and I drive back. And the whole way back, I'm almost in tears because of how much fun I just had and how much of a difference I was able to make in their lives. And afterwards, yeah, they weren't natural born salesperson. They weren't the greatest salespeople in the world, but they were able to make some money and make some sales and actually start to kickstart that for them. And so for me, like, we're doing a new agent training class for $57 today. Like, my team's like, why are we doing it for 50 bucks? I'm like, oh, because if it can be a pivotal moment, an inflection point for somebody and everything can change, then that's what I should do, and it allows people to get in a room with us and see if they want to work with us in any way in the future, right? They may hate it. They probably won't, but they may. And so that's what that for me, it was, I knew, and I told myself, if I ever get a chance to work and help other agents in the future again, I need to do it. I really do.
Well, I would say, kind of through the years I've trained agents and mentored them to sell final expense successfully, the secret to the benefit, I think, for the person who is mentoring is there is an equivalent learning experience for the mentor. Yeah. I've learned more about this business teaching it as opposed to selling it. First of all, if you're in the field, you're out there knocking doors cold, you're on your best behavior as an agent. You can't slack. You can't be lazy. You got to follow that script because eyes are on you and they're judging your performance and, they're holding you to a higher standard. I think that is always teachers. That's the big secret with teaching is you're going to be better because of it, I think. So if there's one thing I've learned in mentoring my agents, I mean, that's been the great thing is I've gotten better to a higher level of knowledge. And I think execution of that knowledge by just simply having to coherently explain why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yes.
And it makes me think about, okay, is that really a good idea? Maybe I should do this and that. So there's some added advantages for sure for those who, want a mentor. I think it's going to benefit you in a special way.
That's such a good point too, because I was telling somebody the other day, I'm like, I was always a very good salesperson, natural, really good at building rapport, really good at overcome objections, and really good at closing. Those were like 3 areas. And then eventually it was the phone. But I'm a way better salesman now simply because I'm training it every single day. And you're right. I pick up ideas from coaching and training and helping people almost just as much, if not more than they do, only because I'm looking, man. Like, even when I'm teaching and training and working with somebody, I am taking notes vigorously and wanting to learn. Like the Brian Tracy interview, like I've got notes stinking everywhere, right? All over this stuff. Why? Because I was looking for nuggets. And that's what I love about people that are serious and successful is they realize there's a lot more to learn. I've got this saying I've been saying recently that I'm kind of enjoying. I haven't arrived, and I hope I never do. You can always learn and keep getting better.
And so I have to, that just as a side comment on the inflection, there was I had a conversation with a mutual friend about a business model that I had access to, could do at a click of a button. And it never occurred to me over years and years of doing it. And then he said, hey, this is actually pretty cool. It works. I'm like, really? And then I started thinking about it. And then I was like, wow, well, let me click this button. And then I started making money. I mean, it's literally, that's what happened with this. And it sounds silly. And I'm not getting too specific. Cody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's funny when you interact with other people that you respect, that in a sense mentor you in a sense.
Sure.
It's amazing. It's just, you have this inflection point where everything becomes clear, and boom,
Totally.
you're up to this. It's real, you know, and you'll get that through interacting with mentors and people who have done more than you, you know. Now, let's talk about what exactly is good mentoring. Okay. So when we say good mentoring, Cody, we're talking skill development. Are we talking about objection rebuttaling, how to do it more effectively? Or we're talking about mindset training? Is it individual to the agent? What would you say good mentoring really involves?
Yeah, it really comes down to three different areas. The first is mindset. Everyone's I'm actually most keen and focused on this portion of an agent's success typically, because a lot of times people have the skill that they need to like make some calls and set some appointments. They have the skills to say, here's what it is. I'm guessing you'd like to take advantage of this today. Am I right? Like that was pretty easy. Or the carrier product knowledge, because there's free webinars, you do stuff like just basic stuff, right? But the mindset piece, typically for someone to change, for 2021 to get better, for an income to change, for you watching to change, for everything to change, we got to change, right? For everything to get better, we got to get better. And so it's typically this that holds someone back from truly being successful, right? Limited thinking, limited beliefs, things get in your way, blocks, and you hear stuff from other people. You get negative advice. You get a family member saying, "Hey, go get a real job." You get someone say, "Quit calling me. You're horrible," right? And you start listening to this stuff, and before you know it, it can affect right here between the ears. Okay, so mindset is, I believe, the most important piece. By the way, second is the actual skill. Right. A lot of people, when I was on that tour, I went to Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin, 4 cities, 4 days, free trainings. I actually love doing those. I don't know why. I get more excited about the free stuff or the cheap stuff than the biggest stuff. I don't know why. I just love it. But I also can have the most impact too. And when I was on those, I talked about how there's 3 things that can hold you back from reaching your goal or reaching your target. Like for someone watching right now, I want to ask you, like, what is your goal for this year? What do you want to accomplish? There's 3 things that can hold you back. Your skill, you may not be good enough to hit that goal, but if you want to get good, you can choose to be good, right? If you want to get as good at sales as I am, for example, you could if you devoted yourself to being really good at it, right? And the third is knowledge. You may not know about as much about insurance as Dave does, but if you want to take his brain and download it into yours, over time, you could know everything he knows about selling insurance. You could, right? It would take time, but it typically takes the mindset and the effort to actually commit to knowing these different pieces. And so a lot of times it's, okay, I got to get some ideas and some knowledge, right? I've got to get better over time, and I've got to start to change my mindset so that I can start to change.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember one of the things that I learned from you mentioned Brian Tracy. Yeah. By the way, you guys should buy his stuff. It's great stuff. Still relevant to this day.
So good.
Everything is learnable. That's a common phrase he uses in many of his books I've got behind me. If somebody's done it before, that means you can do it. You know, if the trail has been blazed, and that kind of was important to me because it told me that, oh, I don't have to this isn't new ground. You know, if this person's done it over here, and that's I'll tell you this too. I'm kind of going on tangent. There's so much here.
You're good.
One of the things I found, I hope I don't sound like an ass saying this, but oh well. One of the things I found going to these group meetings, and you guys will find this out too. This is why I'm saying this. When you meet me in person, I'm just some dude in his office filming, and you realize I'm not that special. All right. And you realize you talk to other successful people that there's something special about them. Don't get me wrong, but they're not way out on some distant planet of incredibleness. A lot of people are of average intelligence. of average upbringings. There's no rhyme or reason to, they had this pedigree earlier in life and this particular background, and they're not as intelligent as you think they are. And to me, this was kind of inspiring. It's like, oh, wow. It's like, now I see these people in the flesh, and it's like, it makes you kind of see that this thing is more possible. But anyways, I
love that, dude. That's so good because, for example, you brought it up. YouTube can almost create like a celebrity type feel to someone based on watching someone for hours and hours. Right. That's how I felt the first time I met you, and I'm like, this dude is just a normal,
he's just normal
dude from
I'm offended.
Tennessee.
I thought I was great. Cody, gosh.
You are, but you were like, you were just casual and cool and calm and collective. I'm like, man, I like
it's interesting that now we sound like those celebrities that are like, complaining about how the world is, it's like, but it is interesting because you and I think of ourselves as just Dave and Cody, right? Like we're just doing our thing. We put pants on one leg at a time in the morning. It's the normal people, but there's this persona that's created by this YouTube thing, right?
Correct.
And likewise, that's of any successful person. There's a persona, there's an idea of them, but you're closer to them and duplication of their success. And I think people really give themselves credit to. They do a few things, little tiny things, a little bit differently, consistently over a long period of time that has an exponential effect. They do the right things right consistently. And the nice thing is you can change. You can alter the mindset, like you said, and adjust. It's possible. You just have to believe and you have to apply yourself.
That's right. Most people are only like a few little tweaks or steps away from just totally shifting everything in a positive momentum. And everything's starting to pick up. And I used to because I've really been studying like successful people and speakers and Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar, all these other people since I was an early teenager. Cause I'm like, man, I really want to be a speaker. I really want to be successful. I want to be this great salesperson. I want to make all this money. I want to fly around on the planes, and you learn that when I look back over the last even 3 years, there's just been a couple key decisions that like deciding to actually start helping agents through YouTube 5 years and 2 months ago was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Could you imagine you've got, that's how I feel. It's like one day I was like,
no,
I should put some YouTube videos up. Like then here we are. Like that's where it all starts from the same inflection point. It's the repetition of life, some idea. You capitalize on it.
That's right. Most people fall off the wagon or they never make it because they quit too soon. You know, it's like the graphic of the guy that's like chopping away and he's one chop away from the diamonds on the other side of the wall, but he can't see and he doesn't know,
I think we all have that image in our heads because that's what I think of, but it plays out over and over again. And it's a truism,
It is, man.
Too many people fall just short of seeing what they want. If they just go a little further.
Yeah. They quit. Just like our theme for our virtual event is if you don't quit, you can't fail. I talked about this on the tour, like, and Dave is living proof of this. As long as you don't quit in the insurance industry specifically, life will get really, really good. Most people don't know that only 4% of companies in the US earn 7 figures. Only 4%. Everyone watching this can get to where they earn 7 figures. Why? Because there's more of them in our industry than any other industry in the world, which means you're in the right vehicle, you're in the right place, you're in the right opportunity. But most people just quit as long as they just persist and they just make the decision right now. Like, I'm not going to throw in the towel. Guaranteed, life will get really good at some point in the future. But for whatever reason, we choose to throw away an amazing future over one minuscule decision, over one minor excuse, over one minor detail when we're having a bad day. And it sucks.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's true. And it's a shame. And we're trying to do what we can to reverse it,
Yes.
So Cody, tell us, kind of wrap this up here and tell us kind of how your coaching and mentoring programs work. You sprinkled in a little bit, but kind of tell where people can go to find out more about how your programs work.
Thanks, buddy. We've got a lot. The easiest place is, we do a lot of events now. CodyAskins.com as our site would be the easiest place. If you want to chat with me, the easiest place would probably be to add me on Instagram at Cody.Askins. I tend to respond to a lot of my Instagram comments and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the basic thing is, if someone's watching, they're like, hey, I don't know where to start. Shoot me an email, Cody@CodyAskins.com. Either myself or someone on our team will get to know you and say, you don't need help, or here's where you are and here's what we recommend, And so every situation's different. We've got, options from free ebooks and stuff to we had one coaching client paying us 25 grand a month, 300 grand a year. So it's like, it's any level of success, whether you're wanting to just get really good and make some money, or because it's typically broken down into something related to making sales and making money, or something related to growing a sales team and duplicating and replicating and scaling yourself, right? It's almost always sales or team, always. And so whichever area you're wanting to scale and grow and expand this year, we've got options to make sure that happens for you.
Cody, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. And more links, I'll link in the description box to find Cody stuff. Cody, send me that link over that you want to send over to him.
You got it.
And thanks for being here. And thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it.